Tonight on AFN Korea Nightly News, Colonel Leanne Fox celebrates over 50 years of diversity in the armed services. And airmen at Kunsan give a helping hand through a volunteer program. All this and more coming up on your award-winning Frontline Network now. Welcome to this edition of AFN Korea Nightly News, broadcasting from our alternate headquarters here in Daegu. I'm Specialist Kim Yutae Irvin. African American service members have devoted themselves to U.S. Armed Forces both on and off the battlefield. In this story, Army Sergeant Rob Frazier introduces us to one soldier at USAG Yongsan who honors those contributions by serving her country and inspiring others.
The role of African Americans in the military has a long and proud tradition dating back before the Revolutionary War. Examples include the Tuskegee Airmen, the Buffalo Soldiers, and the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment. And that tradition lives on today through soldiers like Army Colonel Leanne Fox.
I'm here to excel, to contribute, to bring others with me, and to celebrate the successes of others.
Colonel Fox has more than 20 years of military experience, and during her time, she has made an indelible mark on her career field and the people she works with.
When I look at her, first of all, I look at somebody who, again, like I said, is one great force multiplier for the hospital, who provides a great service to the community through her leadership.
It's great to have people like Colonel Fox and General Pollock to look up to because they're just so inspiring. They've done so much stuff with their careers that I would love to go that far.
Colonel Fox has been the recipient of numerous awards and decorations, even having one created in her honor following her tour in California. And after her first tour in Korea, Colonel Fox became a member of the White House staff during former President Bill Clinton's first term in office. Professionally, Colonel Fox's career seems to have no limits. However, she often relies on her upbringing to keep her feet on the ground.
I was brought up where my parents would say, do better than me. I'm their legacy, and you want to have a legacy that people are proud of.
And it's with that realization that Colonel Fox drives on, continuing the legacy of so many before her, inspiring others by accomplishing the mission and leading by example. I'm Army Sergeant Rob Frazier, USAG Yongsan, Korea.
July 26, 1948, marks the 60th anniversary of Executive Order 9981, signed by former President Harry S. Truman. This order established equal treatment and opportunity within the armed forces. In our next story, Army Sergeant Dion Moses takes us to Area 1 for a look at diversity in the military's past and present.
As integration in the military began to rise in 1950, war broke out on the Korean Peninsula. This conflict resulted in the 2nd Infantry Division leading the way in desegregating our armed forces.
The trench scene that you see represents 1952-53 period in the Korean War. It shows the diversity of soldiers that were assigned to the division. You see calling for fire, an African-American soldier. You see a Caucasian soldier. And then in front you see a Katyusha, a Korean augmentee to the United States Army. That diversity, that strength remains today in the division. Because of that diversity, because of those different ethnicities, because of that backgrounds, you bring strengths from each one. That's what makes us the great division that we are today.
Fast forward 60 years to the heart of the Camp Casey Enclave and the hard-working men and women who make it beat. Lieutenant Colonel Meisler, Command Sergeant Major Saeed, Mr. Richardson, Private Salazar, and Miss Kim. Together, they make up the Camp Casey Enclave Garrison Command Group. These diverse individuals are responsible for every facility and every program that happens in the area. However, if it wasn't for the executive order passed by President Truman 60 years ago, these men and women would have probably never crossed paths. Lieutenant Colonel Donald Meisler says that to him, diversity plays a key role in the strength of the garrison and Area 1 soldiers.
I think diversity just makes our military that much stronger than any other military in the world. Because everybody's got different backgrounds, different skill sets, but I think diversity is what made our nation as strong as it is, and wouldn't life be awful boring if we're all the same.
And there's never a dull moment for the Camp Casey Command Group. They are constantly on the road checking local barracks facilities and opening new services. But don't take my word for it. The benefits of diversity in the armed forces speak for itself.
My complexion and everything, I can pass just like for an Iraqi. And matter of fact, I had an Iraqi soldier ask me once, "Are you American?" Because at the time, you know, unit I was with, we were sterile. We didn't wear U.S. or anything. We just wore a uniform. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm American."
I'm Korean, so I know only Korean knowledge, but this chance to learn to Korean people's culture or their mind and their manners, so I love them.
I don't have just people, my culture or anything like that. I mean, I have different cultures and I can learn a little bit from everybody.
Nowhere but the military, I believe, that you can see such a broad culture and diversity.
A lot has changed since integration began. The landscape of Camp Casey, and in fact the entire Army, has progressed into a multicultural military, unique in the world and stronger than ever. I'm Army Sergeant Dion Moses, Camp Casey, Korea.
The USAG Humphreys Criminal Investigation Division is investigating criminal activity that took place last month. CID revealed the 4-2 Aviation Battalion had more than 30 tactical vehicles damaged, with 51 of their tires slashed, causing $25,000 in damage.
The effect that it's had on my battalion, it lowered our readiness rate dramatically from the upper 90 percentile down to mid 70%, and basically made it to where we were not combat ready, could not move our equipment to the field due to the large amount of equipment. I believe there were 38 pieces of equipment that were involved in this out of 100 trucks that we have, and basically took us out of the fight.
Camp Humphrey CID office is currently running all leads on the investigation. We are looking into various pieces of evidence that were recovered from the crime scene. Right now what we're doing is we are reaching out to the community because someone must know or have some information about this. So our ultimate goal is to solve the crime and the prosecution of all individuals involved.
Coming up, the USS Howard makes a port call at Chinhae Navy Base. Stay with us.
This is your AFN Korea weather forecast for Tuesday, July 22nd. Look for mostly cloudy skies across the peninsula. In Seoul, a high of 84 and a low of 72. At Camp Casey, a high of 84 and a low of 72. In Daegu, a high of 86 and a low of 75. In Osan, a high of 88 and a low of 72. And in Kunsan, a high of 86 and a low of 75. On Wednesday, look for mostly cloudy skies across the peninsula. In Seoul, a high of 84 and a low of 72. At Camp Casey, a high of 88 and a low of 73. In Daegu, a high of 90 and a low of 73. In Osan, a high of 88 and a low of 72. And in Kunsan, a high of 88 and a low of 73. This AFN Korea weather forecast is brought to you by the 607th Weather Squadron.
This July marks the 3rd anniversary of a program at Kunsan called Airman Assisting Airmen. The volunteer-run projects helps Wolfpack members get home safely. There's no big celebration plan, just business as usual, being a good wingman. Airman Camille Tarver tells us about these Wolfpack members who spent their weekends helping other airmen.
Every weekend, the members of Airman Assisting Airmen, or A-Cubed, can be found here, discussing their responsibilities, dividing into pairs, grabbing a walkie-talkie, and heading out into the night. Their mission is simple.
Is to make sure that we get everyone home, to make sure we don't have any incidents or accidents that could be prevented by having, this kind of system in place, so we don't have to worry about anything coming up that could be preventable.
Wearing their bright yellow T-shirts, the A-Cube volunteers walk around base looking for airmen who may need help getting home. They also get calls from people who would just feel safer having someone walk them to their doorstep.
At the end of the night, you feel like you saved lives. You feel like you helped someone, because when you're drunk, a lot of times you don't know what you're doing until the next day. And to have someone else to walk you home and make sure that you get home safely, it makes me feel good.
Normally, they work about 5 hours a night, and after 24 hours of service, receive a letter of appreciation from the base commander. But that's not the only reason these airmen volunteer.
I care for my airmen as I care for my family, and we all know here at Kunsan, we don't have a lot of our family here, so I want to make sure that my airmen get where they should be safely.
Over the last 3 years, the volunteers at A Cubed have made sure more than 400 wingmen have made it home safe. I'm Airman Camille Tarver, Kunsan Air Base, Korea.
Navy ships often spend months out to sea without docking. Army Sergeant Joshua Johnson takes us to Chinhae Navy Base, where USS Howard sailed in for port call to give their crew a long-awaited break.
The USS Howard is a guided missile destroyer, and it's here at Chinhae Navy Base for a port call after spending more than 2 months out at sea. USS Howard's commanding officer, Curtis Goodnight, talks about why it's important for their ship and the crew to visit Korea.
USS Howard is here in Korea, the Republic of Korea, for a short port visit, port of call, to show our sponsorship and our good relations with the Republic of Korea. And it's a good port of call for our sailors to get out and enjoy themselves and recreate after being at sea for a very long time.
For Robert Chong, this port call is like no other. He is a Korean American revisiting his home country for the first time in 6 years. He says he's looking forward to meeting his family after so many years out at sea.
I haven't seen my grandfather like 7 years. I cannot wait until I go see them.
This is a well-deserved break for these sailors, as living on ship is not as easy as it looks. With over hundreds of sailors on board, the only private quarters for these sailors is their bunk beds. Even in this cramped space, though, the ship has a mess hall and even a cardio room for the sailors. Life in a ship is tough, but it's port calls like this that make everything worth it. I'm Army Sergeant Joshua Johnson, Chinhae Navy Base, Korea.
And now for a look at the exchange rate and prices at the pump. Boy Scouts can earn over 100 different merit badges, including everything from art to wilderness survival. Also in the list of badges is one that requires Scouts to understand the basics of radio operation and communication. Army Sergeant Craig Rader introduces us to a group of Boy Scouts earning that badge, with a little help from ham radio operations around the globe.
U.S. hams and Korean hams that are operating with the Boy Scouts today.
With help from a group of Boy Scouts, ham radio enthusiast Harry Rudolph is talking to a man in Kyoto, Japan. But he's not just making a courtesy call.
Yes, we're out here today with the Korean amateur radio operators, the American amateur radio operators, and the Boy Scouts. And we've got an event today primarily with the Boy Scouts where we have a merit badge workshop. And we're trying to get the Boy Scouts to achieve their radio merit badges.
The difference between reading about amateur radio versus actually using one was surprising to some, especially Life Scout Will Vancanet.
Well, it kind of surprised me at first when the first time I did it that so many people actually are communicating in English, like, because I thought that they would be. So it's really, that surprised me.
불러주십시오. 여기는 HL 라인 브라보 시에라 알파입니다.
When amateur radio operators make contact, they log the call letters and mark on a map the locations of everyone they speak with. They sometimes exchange postcards containing their call sign and home location.
First of all, we talk to people all over the world. So far today, many of the stations we're talking to are in Japan, but over the weekend here we expect to talk to people in the U.S., Europe, Africa, all over the world.
And the next time these scouts make a call over their ham radios, they just might have something new to talk about, their latest merit badge. Army Sergeant Craig Rader, Yongsan, Korea.
That's the news for this evening. Tune in to Eagle FM or Thunder AM for the latest in music, news, and information for your area. You can also check us out on the web at afnkorea.net. Thanks for watching your award-winning Frontline Network News from our alternate headquarters here in Daegu. I'm Specialist Kinte Irvin. Have a great night.